everyone. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I have to admit, my heart has been incredibly heavy for Zende Forrester lately. When the Hope for the Future line was officially canceled, I could practically feel the crushing weight of disappointment radiating through the screen. As a longtime viewer, I have watched Zende pour his absolute soul into his designs, constantly fighting to prove that he is more than just an adopted member of this legendary fashion dynasty. Seeing his career hit what looked like an absolute dead end made me genuinely sad. I cannot help but wonder how devastating it must be for a passionate artist to watch their life's work simply vanish into thin air because of corporate decisions. It feels terribly unfair, and I find myself constantly rooting for him to find a new spark of inspiration to pull him out of this dark professional abyss. You really have to look at the psychological toll this takes on a young man who is always trying to measure up to the biological Forrester heirs. I feel like Zende often carries this invisible burden, a constant need to justify his place at the drafting tables of Forrester Creations. When he thought his career was over, I saw a profound sense of defeat in his eyes that resonated deeply with me. Have you ever felt like you gave your absolute best to something, only to have the rug pulled out from under you? That is exactly what I see happening to Zende. I am desperately hoping that the writers give him a chance to rise from these ashes, because a talent like his simply cannot be left to fade away into the background of this bustling fashion house. Now, just when I thought all hope was lost for our struggling designer, along comes R.J. Forrester with a grand sweeping plan that completely caught me off guard. R.J. is pitching a brand new youth-oriented fashion line to his father, Ridge, and he is calling it Electra. On the surface, I have to give R.J. credit for his ambition and his desire to save the family company by tapping into a younger demographic. However, I cannot help but roll my eyes just a little bit at his underlying motivations. It is so painfully obvious to me that R.J. is trying to hit two birds with one stone here. He wants to be the corporate savior, yes, but he is also desperately trying to win over Electra, the recent ex-girlfriend of Will Spencer Jr. It feels like such a classic, reckless young man move to name an entire fashion line after a girl you have a crush on. Honestly, I find myself deeply worried about RJ's thought process in all of this. Is he genuinely passionate about the fashion industry, or is he just using millions of dollars of company resources to play a very expensive game of romance? I look at RJ and I see a young man who is incredibly eager to prove himself, but who often lets his heart completely override his business sense. It makes me incredibly anxious for the future of Forrester Creations if these are the kinds of decisions driving their new projects. Do you all think Ridge is blind to his son's romantic scheming, or is he just so desperate for a fresh financial success that he is willing to overlook RJ's obvious personal agenda? I am leaning toward the latter, but it still makes me profoundly uncomfortable to watch this impulsive plan unfold. The part of RJ's plan that truly made my jaw drop was his decision to bring Zende into the fold to help design the Electra line. On paper, it makes perfect logical sense. Zende spent years working on Hope for the Future, so he intimately knows the youth fashion market better than anyone else in that building. But from an emotional standpoint, I am absolutely terrified of this collaboration. We all remember the incredibly painful history between these two young men. I still have not forgotten the gut-wrenching betrayal when Zende slept with RJ's girlfriend, Luna Nozawa. Watching them try to work together in the same design room feels like watching someone light a match in a room full of dynamite. I am sitting on the edge of my seat, just waiting for the inevitable explosion. It is honestly fascinating and a little bit horrifying to watch RJ and Zende attempt to bury the hatchet. I see them trying so hard to be professional, to put the success of the company above their bitter personal rivalry. But as a man who has seen a lot of life, I have to ask, can you ever truly forgive someone for a betrayal of that magnitude? I certainly do not think I could work side by side with a man who shattered my trust like that. I sense this thick, suffocating layer of unresolved resentment simmering just beneath their polite office interactions. I firmly believe that RJ has not truly forgiven Zende, and I think Zende is only agreeing to this partnership because he is desperate to save his own career. This fragile truce cannot possibly last, and I am incredibly curious to see what tiny spark will finally cause their professional relationship to completely disintegrate. Let us take a moment to really look at Electra's position in this incredibly messy situation. She has recently gone through what appears to be a difficult breakup with Will Spencer Jr., and I can completely understand why she is keeping RJ at arm's length. I feel a deep sense of sympathy for her, because it is incredibly overwhelming to have someone name an entire fashion line after you when you are just trying to heal a broken heart. Electra seems to be a very grounded young woman who is not easily swayed by grand, expensive gestures. I genuinely admire her for setting boundaries and not just throwing herself into RJ's arms just because he is offering her the world on a silver platter. It shows a level of emotional maturity that I think RJ severely lacks. It is actually quite painful for me to watch RJ completely misread Electra's signals. He seems to think that if he just works harder, designs better clothes, and puts her name in lights, she will suddenly realize he is the man of her dreams. I want to reach through the television screen and shake some sense into him. I have lived long enough to know that you cannot buy genuine affection, and you certainly cannot manufacture chemistry where there is none. I predict that RJ is setting himself up for a massive, devastating heartbreak. He is pouring his entire soul into this project, entirely blind to the fact that Electra's heart is simply not moving in his direction. I worry deeply about how this inevitable rejection will impact his mental state and his relationship with his family. This brings me to the absolute most thrilling and nerve-wracking part of this entire storyline. As Zende and Electra begin to spend more time together working on this new youth line, I am already sensing a shift in the atmosphere. Zende has this quiet, brooding, artistic charm that I think deeply appeals to someone who is tired of loud, boastful gestures. I strongly believe that Electra is going to find herself naturally drawn to Zende's genuine talent and his more mature demeanor. It is the classic soap opera setup, and I am absolutely eating it up. I can already picture the late-night design sessions, the accidental brushes of the hand over a sketch pad, and the slow realization that they are falling for each other. It makes my heart race just thinking about the sheer drama of it all. But oh, the terrible guilt that must come with these brewing feelings. The absolute irony of the situation is almost too much to handle. Is history really about to repeat itself? Is Zende truly going to steal another woman right out from under RJ's nose? I find myself incredibly conflicted about this. On one hand, I want Zende to find happiness and success. On the other hand, doing this to RJ a second time feels incredibly cruel, almost unforgivable. I am deeply worried that if Zende crosses this line again, he will be permanently exiled from the Forrester family. I cannot help but wonder if Zende is even aware of the dangerous game he is playing, or if his growing feelings for Electra are simply too powerful for him to control. One thing I hear a lot of viewers discussing, and something I think about constantly, is the family dynamic here. We all know that Zende is adopted, which means there is absolutely no blood relation between him and Electra Forrester. From a biological standpoint, there is nothing wrong with them developing a romantic relationship, but from a social and family legacy perspective, it is a massive, tangled mess. I can only imagine the absolute scandal this will cause within the walls of the Forrester mansion. How will Ridge react when he finds out that his adopted nephew is once again moving in on the woman his biological son is desperately in love with? I foresee some incredibly explosive family dinners in the near future, and I am terrified that Zende will be the one who gets pushed out into the cold. If my predictions are correct, RJ's grand romantic business plan is going to backfire in the most spectacular and painful way imaginable. He created this entire line to win her heart, and in doing so, he literally handed her over to his biggest rival. The poetic tragedy of it all is simply stunning. I feel a profound sense of pity for RJ, even though I think he brought a lot of this on himself with his naive arrogance. Imagine building a beautiful castle for a princess, only to watch her invite the court jester to live in it with her. I believe this impending betrayal will completely shatter RJ's innocence and forever change his trajectory within the family business. He will never trust Zende again, and honestly, I would not blame him one bit. I also spent a lot of time thinking about the immense pressure that is going to be placed on Electra's shoulders. She is going to be caught squarely in the middle of a vicious family war. I wonder how she will handle the guilt of knowing that her heart is tearing two cousins apart. Will she try to deny her feelings for Zende to protect RJ's fragile ego, or will she boldly follow her heart regardless of the catastrophic consequences? I personally hope she chooses honesty, even if it hurts, because stringing RJ along would be a far worse crime. I am incredibly eager to see how the writers navigate her emotional journey. She has the potential to be a beautifully complex character, and I am fully invested in watching her navigate this treacherous Forrester minefield. Beyond the romantic entanglements, I am deeply concerned about the future of Forrester Creations as a company. With all of this toxic emotional baggage polluting the design room, how can they possibly produce a successful fashion line? The fashion industry is cutthroat, and buyers can smell inauthenticity from a mile away. If Zende and RJ are constantly at each other's throats, or if RJ completely breaks down over Elektra's rejection, the entire new line could be a massive financial disaster. I feel like Ridge is completely asleep at the wheel, allowing his family's personal dramas to jeopardize the legacy that Eric Forrester worked so hard to build. I am practically begging the screen for someone to step in and bring some professional order to this chaotic situation before the company loses everything. As I sit here reflecting on all of these tangled webs, I cannot help but feel a rush of pure excitement for the upcoming episodes. This is exactly why I have been dedicated to this show for so many years. The emotional stakes are incredibly high, the characters are deeply flawed and relatable, and the impending drama is deliciously irresistible. I know that many of you watching at home are probably shouting at your televisions right alongside me. Will Zende be able to resist the temptation of Elektra's undeniable charm? Will RJ finally wake up and realize that grand gestures cannot buy true love? I genuinely cannot wait to see how this all unfolds, and I will definitely be right here, ready to analyze every single tear, betrayal, and stolen kiss with all of you.